Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? Once again, I'm Ned from Ned's Tech, but it's otherwise known as your friendly neighborhood basement dweller. Don't worry, ma'am, I am from the internet. And today I want to talk about Spooktober, my plan. I got a project I've been working on a very long time. I want to use consumer electronics and a Ouija board to see if I can identify magic, demons, ghosts, spooky stuff. Anyways, this October. First off, I want to start off by saying that I have a huge fascination for religion. Man, all my life I've been super into religion. Man, I grew up and Roman Catholic, then Baptist. The Baptists threw all these crazy ideas in my head about how pagans were. And then I go and find out the pagans are nothing like they said they were. And then I find out the pagans think that the Christians are. That's a that's a whole other story. Anyways, through all this stuff, I end up getting a friend who gets a Ouija board from a Catholic church of all places. He gets this thing, and I communicate with it. And what I find is really weird. I should say we spend a lot of time with it. I get obsessed with this thing. He gets disturbed with me. He's like, Nev, why don't you just take it, buy it off me? And I did, and I used the thing so much. But what was really fascinating about it, and why this comes to technology, is there were rules about the Ouija board that I didn't understand at the time. I had to learn, I had to wait and learn. For example, all of a sudden it would go MA, 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 and I later learned that it would do that if there was a domesticated animal or a huge amount of semi-domesticated animals, like sheep, for example. For some reason, and the noise too seemed to have something to do with it. It was this science that I didn't even notice until I read about the MA. All of a sudden, they made sure that dogs and cats were away, and it always worked, no problem. And the Zozo, we'll get into that later. Anyways, all I'm saying is that I noticed some science with this, And the things that I was talking to, were they coming from me? Were they coming from my head? Were they extra dimensional things? Now, if these are extra dimensional things, could consumer electronics be able to identify this stuff? Like with the average smartphone, we have GPS, we have electromagnetic field detectors, we have temperatures, we have accelerometers. Now, the thing is, with this stuff, I believe that maybe we could identify an angel or a demon. Scientifically, let's say an angel or a demon is something from the fifth to whatever dimension. Here's the theory. Here's my theory. Now, this theory is based in quantum mathematics and the math that we use to discover black holes. Now, many of you are probably aware that when I was born, black holes were still fiction, totally fictional. And the only way we knew that they existed was because the math was there to show that this existed. So eventually we found out that black holes are real because we've watched long enough. Now, I'm going to tell you about something else that we've learned just with math. With math alone, we've identified about 11 dimensions, maybe even more than that. But there's only about 10 of them that we can comprehend. And we can comprehend three dimensions, up, down, left, right, and but when we get on the fourth dimension is time. The fifth dimension is multiple realities that are somewhat like ours. If okay, so here I'm going to get in. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this and why it is possible for something to exist in one of these dimensions. Fourth dimension, if you could look into the fourth dimension, you could see time from the beginning to the end of the Big Bang to the end. If you were in the fifth dimension, you could see one other timeline where maybe you've made one other choice, maybe two other timelines where you've made another choice, but you would have to travel back in time. Forget that part. Forget that part. The sixth dimension, you could see multiple timelines from the beginning of the Big Bang to the end of time. The seventh dimension, I'm pretty sure in the seventh dimension you could see every other choice that you could have made, and everything from the beginning of the Big Bang to the end of the universe, and every choice you could have made in there. Are we on seven? And then on eight, you can see other Big Bangs, other multiverses. I think they call it the hyperverse at this point. So everything that started from every other Big Bang because apparently, mathematically, there have been multiple Big Bangs in other multiverses. And then in the ninth dimension, we find God in something so small. It has strings in it. And there's so much more to this. But a lot of you, I'm pulling this together, and you know what I'm talking about. So let's say in the fifth dimension, so a tesseract could exist in the fourth dimension. There's different things that can exist in different dimensions. And the way that they would look changes, it alternates. Now, the people that really know about this stuff say that the higher dimensions are inside of us. Okay, now I want to switch over to religion. Now, all pagans believe that there's a power inside of us that come from us. Some say it comes up, some say it's chakras, some say it's, whatever, but the power belongs inside of us. Whereas the Christians seem to believe that you give your heart and all of your energy to God, and God is omnipowerful. No, sorry, they believe that God is omnipowerful. I kind of believe that Christians give power to him, and then he's omni whatever. There seems to be evidence that suggests that the Christian, Judeo, Yahweh, or Jehovah, which is its name, his name, comes from a pantheon where perhaps it was the god of war originally. Now I'm really pulling from some really old text now, but anyways, I'm wondering if it's possible that some of these higher dimensions are actually within us. For example, it's in the Marvel universe. As soon as they get super small, things get super quantum. If they want to go into another time, they have to get really small, which is saying a lot. Other dimensions in smaller places, right? But now there's also a theory that perhaps these dimensions are within us. Now, in one of the books of the Bible, it says the kingdom of heaven is in the hearts of men. Okay, now the thing that occurs to me is most Christian angels seem to be three-dimensional. They say that only God knows the future. But when it comes to pagan entities, I'm not really sure how many of them know or can foretell the future. Of course, the Christian Calvinites believe that God has everything preordained. He knows everything, but I'm not so sure about that. Now, the pagans are going to be really upset that I keep bringing up God, but when I mention all of these things, all of these gods, sometimes I really think that they're all talking about the same thing, like the Earth Mother that the pagans love. Seems to have a connection with Mother Mary. I mean, when I was in the Catholic church, there was always a big deal. It was a big deal, Mother Mary and John the Baptist. And you know how Christians borrow some things. Sometimes when I talk about the Earth Mother, I'm also talking about Mary because, let's face it, religions have borrowed so much from other religions, and the Christians aren't the only ones who've done it, but we all know that they have. I got a Ouija board. I got experience using it. Now, what I'm pulling together are different teams to use it. I need man and woman team because men and women always work better with the board. Now, there are legitimately concerns when using a Ouija board, and I think that we all know this. We've all heard the stories and whatnot, but as someone who's used the board, I can tell you that there are good things you can talk to, and there are negative things. Early on, I've totally believed that I was talking to myself, and there were some times where I was just absolutely sure that I was talking to something else. Now, let's say the worst case scenario, we could get haunted and taken over. I really think that we could have a mother, as long as the female was a mother or had a certain sense. There's a certain skill tree that moms have and a gut feeling. I swear to God, all moms have this gut feeling if something evil is afoot. Canary in a coal mine, you know what I'm talking about? Anyways, eventually, I want to use a Ouija board, eventually, to create an event. Now, this event will be in the center, perhaps in a circle of protection, but at least at 5 points, I'm going to have 5 points recording gravity, electromagnetic waves, temperature, thermal. I will have thermal video. I'll have different versions of optics. Now, am I expecting to find anything? At the end of this, I really feel like Like I'll be that Russian, the first Russian who managed to make it into the sky and into the atmosphere and look around. He says, I see no God here. I have a feeling that's what I'm going to run into. I have a feeling the biggest proof of anything that I'll get is going to come from my electronics failing, which I knew at a very early time was definitely going to happen. And when you talk to people who are trying to go after spirits, you will find that batteries just die, things just stop working, things go corrupt. And I almost wonder how. Perhaps there's some kind of eighth dimensional being trying to understand what this data is and is just destroying it, is trying to interpret it probably. But that is one big problem that keeps going on that I've noticed in different communities. I've looked a lot into other people working with Ouija boards, but particularly one thing that concerns me is possession. Now, possession is one thing that really upsets me because within religions you can say, "Oh, I was possessed, and therefore I was not responsible." But unfortunately, multiple religions do hold absolutely true that possession is a thing, and I don't like to say this, but there does seem to be occasions where the Catholic has hit the nail on the head and been like, no, this person isn't mental. This person is legitimately uh, like taken over, absolutely taken over. And I'm really disappointed that all other religions point to this. So that's another thing that you need to consider, being demonically possessed or hysterical or, stuff like that. Okay, so on the flip side, this carries some scientific merit. There's a university in BC that's using Ouija boards to pull information out of people's subconsciouses, and I can absolutely assure you, as someone who's used a Ouija board, you absolutely talk to your own subconscious sometimes. Most of the time, you talk to your subconscious. I can tell very easily when someone's just talking to themselves, but seriously, this university is using this as a way to pull information out of somebody's head. There's disproportionate proof that if you ask somebody directly and say, do you know what the capital of, whatever is, that they're like, I've never heard of that. Sometimes it's buried in here. There are things that are buried in here. Sometimes it's things that psychologists won't touch because psychologists went so far into it that they ended up getting 53 people falsely incriminated about things that never happened during the Satanism scare of the 90s. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically the biggest reason why Ouija boards are considered satanic right now. But, anyways, if I can actually pull through something that my gut tells me is actually a demon, angel, whatever is. If something comes through up to the eighth dimension and comes to see us, will it trigger gravity? Will it trigger thermal? Will it trigger any of these things that I can pick up? Electromagnetic waves. If I can't pick it up on electromagnetic, and man, I'm gonna have digital and analog cameras on this thing. But that's the plan. Anyways, seriously, if you're into religion at all, can you imagine a religious creature that can see forward into the future? Because now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know too many. But when I think of Hindu things, when I think of Hindu demons, Hindu gods, man, when they describe how all of a sudden I think it's Shiva will have 100 heads or 100 hands, 100 legs, and 1,000 faces or something like that. That really seems like you're trying to interpret something that exists in multiple dimensions. That really seems like something that would exist in multiple dimensions, and maybe I have to look into that. But I'm kind of ranting right now. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. Net from Nev's Tech. But if you have any ideas for me, I'd love to hear them. Have a good one. Take care of each other.